Hello and welcome to the Peace Party. Today is Welcome Home Tuesday. And we're going to do something different today. We found a post this week here in Rogers Park that very much illustrates why we were always asking this one particular question at the end of every segment. What is a reasonable profit for a landlord to make on an apartment unit that costs a total of $1,000 a month to operate? Well, we're going to read this to you, and maybe it'll help shake things up. So, we're going to start. It was suggested that I post here. If this wasn't an appropriate group, please let me know. Thanks. Beginning of post. All capitals. Looking for one-bedroom apartment in Rogers Park, Uptown, Edgewater, Evanston area. Hi everyone. I have lived in the same Rogers Park apartment building for 15 plus years. When I first moved in, the building was owned by a guy going through medical school. He owned one other building, both of which were managed by one person along with a great maintenance guy. As of October 2024, it has been owned by an investment company. My rent for my one-bedroom apartment is $840 a month, utilities included. The investment company wants to hike my rent $522 a month, starting July 1st. And when we think about that, that's 62+% increase in the rent. Now we already know that there's a profit built into the $840 a month rent, or the landlord wouldn't have been able to run the business. Nothing would have worked. So $840 is the reasonable rent for a reasonable landlord. I'm sure if you did the paperwork, you're probably not looking at any more than a 20% profit. But now this investment firm wants 62+% increase in the rent. So this neighbor goes on and says, now you might be thinking, wow, you've been getting a great deal, without knowing anything else. I can understand why you might think that, but what is also true about my apartment is that it has no eat-in area. There is just a kitchenette. The wood floor underneath the carpet, that's older than God, has continued to deteriorate. You can feel lumps in the floor where the nails are or were pounded in, and the wood has given way around it. My building was originally built as a hotel. When the kitchenettes were added, the plumbing was configured in such a way that the hot water coming out of the kitchenette faucet never gets hotter than maybe 98 degrees, if that, when Illinois code minimum is 120 degrees. So we already have a building that this guy's living in that he's accepted is not perfect because, okay, the guy was a medical student, independent owner, nice guy, nothing is perfect, and it's $840 a month. So it goes on and says, let me explain why I've mentioned all of this to you. With all of its flaws, I love my home. I don't want a place with all the fancy upgrades when I know that it comes with a high price tag. I am a professional musician who makes a very modest living, one that is lower middle class. living at best. Unfortunately, because this building is facing gentrification, it's likely that every last one of us who is single and lives in a one-bedroom apartment is going to have to move. I'm hoping to find a one-bedroom apartment for me and my cat, parentheses, and hopefully my small 15-gallon aquarium, close parentheses, owned by someone who isn't trying to make a fortune. Fortunately, at this point, that's everybody's dream. Finding landlords who don't want to make a fortune and actually care about their tenants and aren't greedy, and it's more personal. In Rogers Park, Uptown, Edgewater, really anything, it seems now, I'm pushing it, but certainly Clark. Really, really, really difficult. And we're talking about the city of Chicago here, but this is true for everywhere you go across the United States. And this particular message to the community of Rogers Park here in the city of Chicago, again, is so indicative of what other people are experiencing across the country. So he goes on, "For my 5 part-time jobs are within walking distance of the Red Line, and one is right by the Purple Line." Now, in Chicago, we have public transportation, and the red, purple, some other different colors, just think of the colors and you probably could get one, are a rail line, trains. It's electric, and for all practical purposes, compared to so many other cities across the country, our public transportation system is good. And one of the things that was true in Rogers Park was that the public transportation system was there to help people, so you didn't need a car and get to work downtown or out in the suburbs. But because of that now, of course, we see gentrification because greedy investors look at something like a public transportation system as a reason to raise the rent and make money. And of course, something is supposed to benefit society ends up hurting society. But that's why he talks about this a lot in this point right here, because to this particular neighbor, this is important to getting around and going to work. So I'm trying to find something that is still within walking distance of the Red Line or maybe Purple Lines. I would also consider something near a Brown Line stop too. I'm going to give notice to be out on before June 1st. I'm currently debt-free and have all bold letters, excellent credit. If I can find something affordable, I am a great risk for a responsible landlord. Whether you are someone who knows someone or who might be able to help, or if you have a great idea for how to streamline my search or get the information that I've posted today to the right people, I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks all. This neighbor shouldn't have to move. I think the neighbor would probably stay if it went up to 900. That's still a significant increase. It would hurt, but better than moving. But $500 plus dollars? $522 or whatever the crazy number was? No. And that's why we have to repeal, in the state of Illinois, and there's other states that have this problem, the Rent Control Prevention Act. Here in the state of Illinois, it denies us the right to free speech. This is one of the things I just don't get about it. How can you deny somebody the opportunity to even discuss an issue like high rent by this obnoxious 1995 law that prevents me from doing so? I'm being prevented from talking about high rent and protecting people like this neighbor who wants to stay in the neighborhood, wants to stay in the building, wants to keep practicing and playing music. Doesn't make any sense. So that is what, when it comes to tenant rights, our main focus here in the state of Illinois is going to be the repeal of the Rent Control Prevention Act. It has to be. Because if you don't have free speech, you can't do anything anyway. And if you have such high rent that landlords can do whatever they want, and they could use rent as a weapon, then even if you do organize a building with all the renters, and when it comes time to renew the lease, the criminal landlord decides, well, I'm going to raise your rent $1,000 a month. You can't do anything about it. You couldn't do anything about it if they only raised rents against a couple of the people who were organizing in the building. Because again, if you're somebody like me, a white guy, what are you going to sue for? You can't say discrimination. You ain't going to get very far. And there are no other laws to protect you. So because we've talked about this all day, asking you what is a reasonable profit for a landlord to make on an apartment unit that costs $1,000 a month to rent, well, let's just say right now 62% is too high. Can we start there? Can we start there and say 62% markup is too much? I don't know. Let me know. Should that $1,000 a month be $1,620? Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Till then, bye.